Donc je vais démarrer tranquillement pendant que ces messieurs trouvent leur place. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette deuxième journée de conférence de l'Agence nationale des fréquences sur le sujet évidemment spectre et innovation. Pour ceux qui n'étaient pas des nôtres hier, je me permettrai de faire 2 ou 3 petits rappels. Le premier, c'est que des codes Wi-Fi sont à votre disposition en bas pour ceux qui en auraient besoin. Le deuxième, c'est que vous pouvez évidemment poser vos questions et nous joindre pour questions, commentaires et autres sur Twitter au hashtag SPI13. Donc n'hésitez pas à interagir avec nous sur Twitter. Et enfin, certains des intervenants vont parler en anglais. Vous avez donc devant vous les casques de traduction pour ceux qui en auraient besoin. On a une belle journée devant nous avec évidemment l'intervention de la ministre déléguée Fleur Pellerin qui sera à 12h45 qui ponctuera une série de tables rondes et d'allocutions. On va peut-être commencer dès à présent par la première et je compterai sur vous au moment des pauses pour vous empresser de revenir à l'heure indiquée pour pas qu'on prenne du retard parce qu'on a un beau programme assez chargé aujourd'hui. Et donc, pour commencer, j'aimerais inviter le monsieur qui est monsieur Fabio Leite, qui est directeur adjoint du bureau des radiocommunications à l'Union internationale des télécoms. Monsieur Leite, qui a travaillé dans les télécoms au Brésil avant de rejoindre l'UIT. Je vous prie de l'accueillir avec moi.
Bonjour, Monsieur Jean-Pierre Le Pasteur, président du conseil d'administration de l'Agence nationale de fréquences, Monsieur Gilles Bregon, directeur général de l'ANFR et d'autres autorités présentes. Malheureusement, je vais être obligé de quitter la langue française, c'est ma préférée, ma langue d'adoption, pour passer à l'anglais parce que je pensais que c'était plus facile pour traiter des questions techniques. So if the interpreters can accept that I change the language, I will move to the English language. It's possible, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting the International Telecommunication Union to this very important meeting. And myself, I am very pleased to be here in Paris and most importantly among friends and colleagues of a long time to discuss an issue that for me is very close to my heart, that is spectrum. And this connection that you are making at this conference between spectrum and innovation is a very important notion that I would like in this few minutes that you give to me to explore within the international context. I'll try not to be polemic and entering into the very hot issues that are on the plate these days, but at least I'll try to cover some aspects that I think it's very important to discuss. And of course, probably you are waiting from me that I will give the ITU vision for the future in terms of the trends for spectrum usage. I will do that, but allow me first to go back a little bit in the past and refer to the history of the use of spectrum. If you come back some 150 or more years ago, you would remind that a very important fact in terms of innovation was the invention of the electric telegraph. It's a very strange device for you, I suppose, in this context of this conference, but I thought it would be interesting just to read out for you a news that an Australian newspaper had at that time when this invention was made public that said, "This is the most perfect invention of modern times. As anything more perfect than this is scarcely conceivable. And we really begin to wonder what will be left for the next generations. upon which to expand the restless energies of the human mind. So that was, at that time, the end of the history of technology. Nothing more could be developed. The world was very simple and very exciting with the electric telegraph. But a few decades after that invention, electromagnetism was discovered, and of course radio was invented. Although already with the electric telegraph, there was a need to regulate the exchanges between countries, and the predecessor of ITU was created at that time. So it was called the International Telegraph Union. But of course, with the invention of radio, we saw that at the beginning of last century, there were already 5,000 ships navigating using shortwave communication, so spectrum was starting to be used. And of course, this was a big, big advancement for the humankind at the time, because the ships could communicate with the coast stations. And there was a need to regulate the maritime service. And I just brought, I'll leave here in the agency, a copy of the first radio regulation, the first convention regulating spectrum at that time. That's a copy where you're going to find very interesting comments here, in particular the creation of the SOS code, Morse code, and other considerations about spectrum use, but it was just shortwave. It was very simple, but the question of interoperability was already there. So that was a very important element, because the first message I want to give here is that it's very important to have good regulations for spectrum. And I think this convention was already a very good piece of regulation for the environment of that time. Today, for those that are familiar, this convention evolved to a book of more than 2,000 pages, and regulating 40 radio services. So it's very complex, very technical, and legally complex, but it's still a very good piece of regulation. So today, if you read or examine the radio regulations, you'll see that the spectrum is being regulated from very extremely low frequencies that are used for detection of lightning, so around 8 kilohertz, to very high, extremely high frequencies, so close to 1 terahertz. And what is very striking and very important and facilitates the use of spectrum. The process to keep this spectrum allocation system up to date to technology and in order to foster innovation, this process is very complex on a worldwide basis. Some of you participate in it, but normally we have a gathering of 3,000 delegates that are supposed to be experts on the legal and technical aspects, getting together to discuss the same amount of proposals in the order of 3,000, sometimes more than that, every 3 to 4 years. And this is all put together in an update of the radio regulations. But despite of the complexity, it's very efficient and very responsive for the needs of the industry. I could spend some time here giving you examples, but if you just go back to the recent results, you remember that in 1992 was when the first spectrum for 3G was allocated. At the same time, a spectrum was allocated also for the mobile satellite systems for personal use, so you still have Iridium functioning today. A few years after, you had the frequency for Galileo. That was a pressing need of the industry at that time. And in 2003, you had the 5 gigahertz band allocated to Wi-Fi. And I could continue like that, coming up to the 3G and 4G spectrum that we recently allocated through this process. So again, I repeat, it's very important to have this regulatory framework established in a good manner in such a way that at the international level and at the national level, at the regional level, we could create the conditions for spectrum be allocated and available on a timely basis. Well, the other important element is also to harmonize the spectrum. So it's not only to make it available, but to make it available in a in a manner that could be used in a way that we are guaranteeing that we are going to reduce the costs for the user, reduce the interference difficulties or problems that could come up. And in that respect, the role of ITU is very important because we facilitate the negotiations among the countries, among the regions to harmonize the spectrum. And of course, you're going to tell me that the 700 megahertz band that I'm sure is a very interesting topic for you is not harmonized, but we are working very hard to get it as much harmonized as possible, despite the fact that our friends of North America are not helping too much. But it's something that is one of the subjects of big interest in ITU, to have the second digital dividend in good, available in the best manner. The other topic that I think it's interesting to consider is the economics of spectrum. This notion was first introduced in the ITU regulations in 1920. So for the first time, it was recognized in the regulations of ITU that the spectrum has an economic value. And today is engraved in the constitution of ITU that one of our functions is to ensure the most economic use of spectrum by all the radio services. So that's a very hard task for us, but it's very clear that we have to treat spectrum with the recognition of its economic value. So this, I think at the end of the day, that would be the most important message of this conference, is this relationship between spectrum and its repercussion on the economy, and that's something that in ITU we are very knowledgeable and pay a lot of attention. Well, next consideration I want to give to you in this short brief on the international aspects of spectrum is the management of spectrum. I think that most of you have been involved with the discussions on new approaches that are departing from the conventional command and control way of dealing with spectrum management. We have seen very interesting ideas. One that's not new is the idea of the commons, of the use of spectrum on an unlicensed or licensed exempt basis. That explained the uptake of Wi-Fi that we are all using here, and other RFID devices. So the notion of commons is very important and has been fostering innovation in many fields. I think, that's my view, that this will be the basis for the next wireless revolution. In particular, when we deal with the machine-to-machine communications, you all have seen forecasts that there will be more than 50 billion devices connected in 2020. So this is 10 times more devices connected than human beings. So probably every device will be connected to the internet in the near future, and this is thanks to wise and timely spectrum decisions, spectrum-related decisions that we have been taking. Of course, what is being discussed a lot today is the notion of authorized shared access, where you try to use idle spectrum that is licensed for other licensed services that are in need of spectrum at that time. So the most clear example is TV white spaces. I think the internet community became very interested in this notion. And you see big movements from Microsoft, Google, and others. Just before coming here, I heard that 23 organizations, most of them working with the internet, have created the dynamic spectrum organization to deal with this aspect of the use of spectrum by means of TV white spaces. And so that means that this is going to become very serious and probably another element to foster innovation with the use of spectrum. I have met this morning some of you that have been working with me in the past with the definition of spectrum for 3G. I don't like to remember this because it makes me very old, but I'm older. I cannot, but I don't want you to be feeling the same. But it's true that in 1986 was when, for the first time, some of us get together to discuss the possibility of having mobile telephones becoming a personal device. At that time, you remember, the mobile phones were brick size, almost 2 kilos. The first Motorola phones were costing $4,000, and I was not one of that because I was just working on the operational side, but those visionary people, they considered that at the end, we would be using the phone like we use the watch. We would just put on the pocket in the morning and just leave. And that was a very strange notion at that time. But important thing is that we consider that the first decision that has to be made at that time was to define a spectrum. So if we would not have selected a big bunch of spectrum, nothing would happen. Spectrum defined would push the industry to define standards, and after 6 years of work, the 2 gigahertz band was defined in 1992, as I mentioned to you before, and that was this creates the real basis for 3G to exist. Of course, it took 8 years for the systems to become operational. We consider to be a very successful result to take 8 years to come from the spectrum definition to the put into commercial use. If you recall, GSM took 13 years to become reality since the first decisions were taken. So we moved to 80 years, and then 3G was launched in Japan for the first time, and after in Europe, and pick up with all the functionalities that we see today. Today, this time span between the definition of a spectrum till the put into practice has been reduced to around 3 to 4 years. So this is creating a lot of dynamics and pushing the regulators to become very effective in identifying spectrum and make the spectrum available to the market. So in any way, this is an exercise that the regulators have understood that they have to do in a very timely manner in this very dynamic world of mobile communications. So that is an example that I think is very important to recall, and between the availability of spectrum and the creation and the put into service of systems that are innovative systems. So just to conclude, with your permission, I just want to recall some of you of the important memorandum that President Obama just published before we come here. That is very known for most of you. I will read out, because it's a good way to summarize my message here. It's not because I like Obama more than you, but it's just because he took the right words. And it just said that in the memorandum that it's recognized that expanding the availability of spectrum for innovative and flexible commercial uses, including for broadband service, will further promote economic development by providing citizens and business with greater speed and availability of coverage, encourage further development of cutting-edge wireless technologies, applications, and services, and help reduce user charges for households and business. So that's a good summary. This was made in order to push the regulators to make spectrum available, more spectrum available, and with the intention, it's said there, to keep or expand the United States leadership in wireless innovation. So I am sure that in the digital agenda for Europe, this notion is also there, and creating the right policy environment for making spectrum available on a timely basis. It's clear by going through this historical briefing that I made to you and seeing the situation today that technology has evolved from very basic notions, as I mentioned to you, when shortwave was used, to the situation where today most of the radios are becoming cognitive. As I mentioned to you, the notion of TV white space is one of the applications of cognitive radio. The regulator framework is evolving very rapidly also. We are going probably to a situation where we are going to have an open radio environment with very soft and few regulations. And if we check the penetration of radio devices, you'll see that it used to be a very exclusive technology a long time ago, to become something that I used to call a vanishing technology. It's like the light. You enter the room, you don't care if there's light or not, because you take for granted that there is light. You take for granted that there is Wi-Fi. So it's becoming a technology that is becoming a core function embedded in every device. So I think this is something that is what we are observing today. We have already made it very clear that this technology is very much related to development, to the increase of the wellness of human being. So I just want to conclude to say that it's very important that we continue to take, to keep this trend in this direction, continue to take wise and timely decisions on spectrum policy, management, and in particular in the economics of spectrum. And in this respect, in my view, the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, will continue to play a vital role to the benefit not only of countries or its member states, but for the whole mankind. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci, Monsieur Laité. Merci. Des propos très intéressants qui nous mènent à la table ronde suivante, puisque si on a mis 30 ans pour tous adopter le mobile et en avoir un dans notre poche, la question qui se pose, c'est combien de temps pour qu'on ait tous le paiement sans contact dans nos objets, combien de temps pour que tous nos objets se connectent et qu'on arrive dans un monde d'Internet des objets. Et ça nous amène donc à la table ronde 3, et la première de ce jour, les fréquences relais de croissance de l'industrie et facteurs de dynamisation des PME. Et on va voir ça donc avec l'Internet des objets et le paiement sans contact notamment. J'appelle les panélistes à venir s'installer, je vais les présenter ensuite. bienvenue à vous tous. Monsieur Gérard Pogorel nous fera l'introduction tout à l'heure, mais je vais d'abord présenter l'ensemble des personnes qui sont installées ici. Donc, Monsieur Glenn Collinson, qui est directeur chez Neul. Pierre-Emmanuel Houillet, Managing Director chez HSBC France. Ludovic Lemoine, PDG de Sigfox. Thierry Miléo, d'IBM Global Business Services. Olivier Roussat, qui est PDG de Bouygues Télécom. Olivier Sichel, PDG de leguide.com. Rémi Detonac, PDG d'Inside Secure à ma droite. Et enfin, Philippe Escande de Le Monde Éco et Entreprise sera votre modérateur de panel aujourd'hui. Je vais d'abord céder la parole à monsieur Gérard Pogorel, professeur d'économie à Télécom Paris Tech, pour nous introduire le sujet.
Merci. Dans 10 ans, l'économie, la société seront complètement différentes de ce que nous connaissons aujourd'hui. Alors certains diront ouf, tant mieux. Effectivement, et ce que nous entendons illustrer dans la session de ce matin, c'est ce fait que la transformation de l'industrie, la transformation des services qui ne s'arrête pas. Et il a été dit déjà à plusieurs reprises que d'une certaine façon, l'Europe a glissé, l'Europe a perdu une part de son leadership dans l'économie internationale, mais dans 10 ans, le paysage sera complètement différent, et ce qui importe aujourd'hui, bon, c'est non pas de regarder le passé, mais c'est de regarder ce que sera l'avenir de l'industrie des services en Europe. Et ce que nous entendons illustrer, c'est que cet avenir de l'industrie des services, bien évidemment, aura des conséquences dans l'usage du spectre radio, mais dans la session elle-même, on va très peu parler en fait de spectre radio, mais nous allons parler de cet élargissement et de cette transformation des sphères de communication. Les sphères, bon, on a déjà parlé quelque peu des sphères interpersonnelles, des sphères sociales, et aujourd'hui nous allons parler beaucoup des sphères d'entreprise, des sphères commerciales, des sphères de management, et ces sphères qui incluent l'usage de réseaux aussi bien fixes que mobiles, mais ce que l'on observe aussi, c'est que quand la technologie le permet, la mobilité l'emporte sur la fixité. C'est une tendance qui a été observée dans les télécommunications stricto sensu, mais c'est une tendance comme nous allons l'illustrer, s'observe aussi aujourd'hui dans le management. Des offres apparaissent aujourd'hui qui étendent les flux d'informations et les flux de communication managériaux des entreprises à la mobilité, à différents types de terminaux. On voit dans le domaine du commerce, bien sûr, que le commerce glisse progressivement vers des formes de mobilité. Dans le domaine bancaire, dans le domaine des paiements, la mobilité déjà, enfin, je pense que nous allons l'illustrer, la mobilité tend à l'emporter sur les relations avec les implantations bancaires fixe. Donc l'évolution vers la mobilité, l'évolution vers des services faisant usage de spectre radio est une évolution qui est extrêmement puissante et qui opère une transformation qui donne nous allons l'illustrer ce matin, qui donne aux entreprises en France et en Europe toute leur chance, donc de reprendre un leadership mondial. Bon, je pense que